April 14th, 1943. 58 St. James's Street, London. 11:47 p.m. The basement room hums with electricity. Major Tommy Harris leans against the concrete wall, a cigarette balanced between his fingers, watching the operator's hand move across the Morse key. Tap, tap, tap. The rhythm is methodical, precise, each pulse of current carrying a lie across the channel, straight into the heart of the Abwehr headquarters in Madrid. You can feel the weight of it in this room. The air is thick with cigarette smoke and the metallic tang of radio equipment. 3 men surround the transmission table, the operator, fingers dancing, the encoder, reading from a sheet of carefully crafted intelligence, and standing behind them both, a slight man with sharp eyes and an impossible smile, Juan Pujol García, Agent Garbo, the man who convinced Nazi Germany he commanded a network of 27 spies across Britain, when in reality, every single one existed only in his imagination. Tonight's message is different. Tonight, Garbo is introducing someone new to his handlers in Madrid. Not another fictional sub-agent stationed in Glasgow or Liverpool. This time, he's creating something more intimate, more essential. A radio mechanic, a technical operator who would supposedly handle the increasingly complex transmissions from Garbo's growing network. Harris watches Garbo pace the small room, 6 steps one way, 6 steps back. The Catalan's mind works like clockwork, always 3 moves ahead. He's muttering in Spanish, rehearsing the narrative, ensuring every detail locks into place. The mechanic's name is... What did we settle on? Harris asks, stubbing out his cigarette. We didn't, Garbo replies in accented English. They will never know his name. He is technical staff, background, invisible. The operator pauses, waiting for the next line of encrypted text. The encoder looks up, eyebrow raised. Harris nods slowly. Invisible. That's the genius of it. This fictional radio mechanic wouldn't need a backstory, a personality, a location. He would exist purely as a function, the man who operates the equipment. Berlin would accept him without question because every intelligence network needs technical support. It's logical, mundane, unworthy of investigation, and that mundane invisibility would give MI5 complete control. The message continues its journey across the airwaves. In Madrid, a German intelligence officer will receive these coded pulses, decode them, and read about Garbo's new arrangement. The handler will file a report. Berlin will approve. And from that moment forward, every transmission supposedly coming from Garbo's network in Britain will actually originate from this basement room in St. James's Street, operated by British intelligence officers, crafting a narrative so believable that the Third Reich will base strategic decisions on fiction. Garbo stops pacing. He looks at the radio equipment, at the men working the transmission, and for just a moment, his expression shifts. There's pride there, yes, but something else too. The weight of maintaining 27 fictional lives, of inventing reports and personalities and relationships, of ensuring every tiny detail remains consistent across thousands of messages. Now he's adding another layer, another character in this vast theatrical production where the audience believes every word, and the consequences of a missed cue could mean thousands of lives. The transmission ends. The operator removes his headset. Silence floods the room, that particular kind of silence that follows a performance, when the actors exhale and wonder if the audience believed. Madrid will acknowledge within the hour, Harris says, checking his watch. We should prepare the confirmation response. Garbo nods, but his eyes remain on the radio. In his mind, the network is expanding. Agent 3 in Glasgow, Agent 7 in Wales, the radio mechanic in London. Each one a carefully constructed ghost, and he the puppet master pulling every string. But here's what Berlin doesn't know, what they will never discover. The puppet master himself is just another puppet, and the real controllers are watching from the shadows of British intelligence, orchestrating the greatest deception in the history of warfare. The Unlikely Spy, February 1941, Lisbon, Portugal. 26 months before that transmission in London, Juan Pujol García sits in a cramped apartment in Lisbon's Baixa district, surrounded by maps of Britain, maps he purchased from a Lisbon bookstore, maps depicting a country he's never visited. He's attempting something absurd, convincing Nazi Germany that he's their man in London, while he's actually hundreds of miles away in neutral Portugal, with no intelligence training, no network, and no idea what he's doing. He should fail. By all reasonable measures, he should have failed already. But Juan Pujol García is not a reasonable man. He's a grocery store manager from Barcelona who witnessed the Spanish Civil War and emerged with a singular conviction: the Nazis must lose. Not because he's particularly political. He's not. Not because he's aligned with the Allies. He tried offering his services to the British 3 times, and they rejected him each time. No, Garbo wants to fight the Nazis for the same reason anyone fights, because someone must, and he's willing to try. So he lies, magnificently, audaciously, completely. He approaches the German embassy in Madrid. He tells them he's a Spanish government official with pro-Nazi sympathies. He invents a contact in Britain, a KLM Royal Dutch Airlines employee who can get him into the country. He forges documents, he fabricates credentials, and somehow, impossibly, the Abwehr believes him. By July 1941, German intelligence thinks Juan Pujol García is in London, sending reports about British convoys, military movements, and strategic intelligence. In reality, he's sitting in Lisbon, inventing everything. He creates convoy schedules based on shipping magazines. He describes London's streets using a tourist guidebook. He invents sources: a pilot in the RAF, a dock worker in Liverpool, a clerk in the Ministry of Information. The reports are riddled with errors. He places Glasgow in the wrong part of Scotland. He claims British soldiers receive a wine ration, they receive rum. He describes currency in pre-decimal terms that would confuse any actual British resident. His intelligence is a disaster, but it's believable disaster. The Germans want to believe they have an agent in Britain. They need to believe it. So they overlook the mistakes, attribute them to unfamiliarity with local customs, and keep asking for more reports. And Garbo keeps inventing. But there's a problem. The British are intercepting German communications through Ultra, the secret decryption program reading Enigma-coded messages. They notice references to an unknown German agent operating in Britain. They become alarmed. Who is this spy? How did he infiltrate? What damage is he causing? MI5 begins investigating. They analyze the reports, they recognize the errors, and slowly, impossibly, they realize the truth. This agent doesn't exist in Britain. He's making everything up. He's lying to the Germans, and the Germans are believing him. On April 19, 1942, British intelligence intercepts a message from Berlin to Madrid, praising their London agent for excellent work. The intercepted message includes details that match reports from this phantom agent. MI5 officer Tomás Harris, a half-Spanish art dealer turned intelligence operative, connects the pieces. He approaches his superiors with a radical proposal. Find this man, whoever he is, and bring him to London. Turn him into a double agent. Use his established credibility with the Abwehr to feed them controlled information. Finding him takes weeks. British intelligence contacts their Portuguese counterparts. They trace financial transactions. They monitor communications. Finally, in late April 1942, they locate him. A Spanish national living in Lisbon, sending reports to Germany about a country he's never seen. When MI5 officer Desmond Bristow makes contact, Garbo's first words are relief. Finally, he says in Spanish, I've been trying to reach you for 2 years. 3 days later, Juan Pujol García boards a boat to Britain. He's traveling not as a German spy pretending to work for Britain, but as a Spanish civilian who's been pretending to be a German spy. now genuinely working for Britain. The layers of deception are so complex that even MI5's briefing reports struggle to articulate his status clearly. He arrives in London on April 24th, 1942. Thomas Harris meets him at the dock, takes one look at this slight, nervous grocery store manager who convinced Nazi intelligence he commanded sources across Britain, and thinks, "We can use this. We can use him brilliantly." Harris names him Garbo, after Greta Garbo, the actress, because he's the greatest actor in the world. The code name fits. Everything about Juan Pujol García is performance. His entire existence, from this moment forward, will be theatrical deception on a scale that would make any playwright weep with envy. But first, they need to make his network legitimate. They need to transform his invented agents from figments of imagination into usable intelligence tools. They need to create backstories, establish communication patterns, develop credible sources of information. And somewhere in that planning, someone asks the obvious question: how will Garbo maintain contact with Madrid as his network grows? Radio transmission is complex, technical, suspicious. If Garbo suddenly starts operating sophisticated radio equipment, Berlin might wonder where he acquired the skills. Harris lights a cigarette, thinking. Then he smiles. We'll give him a radio operator. Someone technical, someone who remains in the background. And that's when the idea begins. The idea that will become the phantom radio mechanic, the invisible operator who doesn't exist but will control everything. Section 3. Building Shadows, June 1942. MI5 Headquarters, 58 St. James's Street, London. The conference room smells like stale coffee and Harris's perpetual cigarettes. Spread across the oak table are files, dozens of them, each representing one of Garbo's fictional sub-agents. Harris has organized them like a company org chart. At the top, Garbo himself, Agent Arabelle as the Germans know him. Below, his growing network of sources. Agent 1, a Portuguese commercial traveler based in Britain. Status, established, credible. Agent 2, a Swiss-German businessman who supposedly hates Britain. Status, recently invented, needs development. Agent 3, a Venezuelan student in Glasgow with access to naval intelligence. Status, active, high-value reports, and so on. 7 agents, each with distinct personalities, locations, access points, each one entirely fictional. Lieutenant Colonel T.A. Robertson, tar to his colleagues, stands at the head of the table, studying the files. He's the head of MI5's B1A section, responsible for running double agents. He's managed captured German spies, turned them, used them. But Garbo is different. Garbo isn't a captured enemy agent. He's a volunteer who created his own network before British intelligence even knew he existed. The problem, Robertson says, tapping one of the files, is sustainability. 7 fictional agents require 7 distinct writing styles, 7 separate reporting patterns, 7 sets of consistent details. Every message must maintain character. Every report must align with previous intelligence. One inconsistency, one narrative break, and Berlin starts questioning the entire network. Harris nods, exhaling smoke. Garbo can maintain it. His memory is remarkable. For now. Robertson sets down the file. But we're planning to expand. More agents, more complexity. Reports coming from Liverpool, Glasgow, Swansea, Southampton. Multiple sources requiring coordination, and all of it transmitted from London. He pauses. Berlin will eventually ask how Garbo manages the communications. How one man coordinates 7 agents across Britain and transmits their combined intelligence regularly. It's not logistically credible. Across the table, Cyril Mills, MI5 officer and pre-war circus proprietor, leans forward. We could establish meeting protocols. Garbo travels to collect reports, returns to London to transmit. That's standard tradecraft. Too slow, Harris counters. The value of this network is timeliness. If we wait days between agent contact and transmission, the intelligence becomes stale, Berlin expects speed. The room falls silent. Outside, London traffic hums. Buses, pedestrians, the occasional military vehicle. Inside, 5 intelligence officers contemplate a problem that shouldn't exist: how to make an imaginary spy network function with realistic logistics. Then Captain Mills speaks again, slowly, thinking aloud. What if Garbo doesn't transmit? What if someone else does? Everyone looks at him. A radio operator, Mills continues. Technical staff. Garbo recruits someone to handle the equipment. Someone British, perhaps. Someone with radio experience. Garbo provides the intelligence. This operator handles transmission. It adds a layer of realism. Professional networks use professional operators. Robertson considers this. Berlin would need to approve. They'd want details, name, background, security clearance. Not necessarily. Harris taps ash into a tray. Think about it. Every intelligence operation has support staff. Couriers, safe housekeepers, technical operators. They're functionaries. Berlin cares about sources, the agents providing intelligence. They don't interrogate every clerk and mechanic. It's beneath operational priority. The idea takes shape. Not another character like Agent 3 or Agent 7, with elaborate backstories and distinct personalities. Instead, a background figure, a utility character. The man who operates the radio but contributes nothing to the actual intelligence. Someone Berlin would approve automatically, because rejecting him would be operationally irrational. We'd need to introduce him carefully, Robertson says. Garbo mentions needing better communication capacity. His network is growing, the technical demands increasing. He finds someone, a British radio enthusiast perhaps, someone sympathetic to fascism or simply mercenary. We keep details minimal. No name, no backstory, just function. Harris writes notes on a pad. And once Berlin approves, once they approve, Robertson says, we have complete control. This radio mechanic operates from London, which is precisely where we are. No more pretending Garbo is travelling to collect reports. No more timing issues. We transmit in real time, directly from this building. And Berlin believes it's all coming from Garbo's network through his recruited operator. Silence again, but this time it's contemplative. They're seeing the possibilities. A fictional radio operator eliminates the communication bottleneck. It provides cover for transmitting from MI5 headquarters. It scales with the network's expansion. And because the operator remains invisible, there's no personality to maintain, no backstory to defend, no chance of narrative inconsistency. Garbo himself enters the room, summoned by Harris. He's been studying English in a separate office, working on eliminating his accent for potential field meetings. Harris explains the proposal. Garbo listens, his expression unreadable, then smiles. Yes, he says simply. This is good, very good. Berlin will accept because it is practical. They are practical men, he pauses, but we must present it correctly, not as my idea, as necessity. The network grows, the communications become complex. I find solution, they approve solution. It is, how do you say, organic? Organic, Harris confirms. It develops naturally from operational requirements. Robertson nods. We'll draft the initial message. Garbo mentions the communication challenges. A few weeks later, he reports finding a possible solution. We let Berlin suggest approval, rather than requesting it outright. Make them think it's their idea. And that's how it begins. Not with a dramatic revelation or sudden announcement, but with careful planning in a smoky conference room. 5 men crafting the introduction of a character who will never exist, but will become one of the most important elements in the greatest deception operation of World War II. Over the following weeks, they refine the plan. They decide the mechanic will remain nameless. My radio operator is sufficient. They establish that he'll work from London, which aligns with Garbo's supposed base. They determine he'll be British, recruited by Garbo, paid for services, politically neutral, or sympathetic. Nothing more. In July 1942, Garbo sends his first message mentioning communication difficulties. Berlin responds with encouragement, suggesting he find better equipment. In August, Garbo mentions a possible contact, someone with radio experience, willing to work for payment, and in September, he reports success. He's recruited a radio mechanic, professional, discreet, ready to handle the network's growing transmission needs. Berlin's response comes within 48 hours. Approved. Proceed with recruitment. Ensure operational security. Just like that, the phantom operator joins the network. Another ghost in Garbo's invisible army. But this ghost is different. This ghost will transmit every message, control every communication, manage every piece of intelligence flowing from Britain to Germany. And this ghost will be operated entirely by MI5 from a basement in London, with German intelligence never suspecting they're communicating directly with enemy headquarters. The Phantom Operator, September 28th, 1942. MI5 Radio Room, 58 St. James's Street. The equipment arrives in wooden crates stamped with War Office markings. A Mark III wireless set, recently captured from a German agent arrested in Scotland. The agent is in custody. His radio is now British property, and tonight that radio will come back online, transmitting to Madrid, but operated by the very people who captured it. Sergeant Charles Haynes, of the Royal Corps of Signals, sets up the equipment on a steel table in the basement. He's MI5's radio operator, the man who will physically transmit Garbo's messages. He's done this work before, operating captured radios to maintain cover for turned agents. But this is different. This time, he's not pretending to be a German agent. He's pretending to be someone pretending to help a German agent, a British radio mechanic, supposedly recruited by Garbo, supposedly sympathetic to fascism or motivated by money, transmitting intelligence to Spain. The layers make his head hurt. Harris watches the setup, checking his watch periodically. The first transmission from Garbo's radio operator is scheduled for 23 hours. They've crafted the message carefully. A status report from Agent 3 in Glasgow, formatted exactly as Garbo's previous messages, but transmitted with slightly different rhythm and spacing. Berlin's radio analysts will notice the technical differences. That's intentional. They need to establish that a different hand is operating the key. The fist will be different, Haynes says, testing the key. In radio intelligence, fist refers to an operator's distinctive style, the rhythm, spacing, and timing of their Morse transmissions. Every operator has a unique fist, as recognizable as a fingerprint. Berlin will detect the change immediately. Good, Harris replies. That's evidence of authenticity. Garbo warned them about the new operator. Now the technical signature confirms it. Garbo enters, carrying 2 folders. He's dressed in a worn suit, playing the role even here in private among allies. He studied the reports from Agent 3, memorized the details, prepared for any follow-up questions Berlin might ask. Tonight's message reports on cargo movements through Glasgow Harbour, real information, carefully selected by MI5 to be accurate but useless, confirming Garbo's credibility without compromising operations. Remember, Garbo says to Haynes, speaking slowly in English, you are British man, working for money. You don't care about war, you just operate radio. You have no opinion about intelligence. You are, what is word, neutral. Mercenary, Harris offers. Yes, mercenary. You are mercenary. Berlin understands mercenary. Haynes nods, settling into position before the radio. His hand hovers over the transmission key. In his mind, he's compartmentalizing, separating himself from the fiction. He is not a British radio mechanic working for a German spy. He is Sergeant Charles Haynes, working for British intelligence, pretending to be a British radio mechanic, working for what German intelligence thinks is a German spy, but is actually another British intelligence operation. Simple. The clock reaches 23 hours. Haynes begins transmitting. Tap, 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 tap. The opening sequence. The call sign Garbo has established with Madrid. Then the encoded message. A string of numbers representing letters, words, intelligence. The message is brief, professional, technically competent. 3 minutes of transmission. Then silence. They wait. In Madrid, at Abwehr headquarters, the message is received, decoded, analyzed. Someone notices the change in transmission style. Someone files a report noting the different operator fist. Someone compares this to Garbo's previous message warning about the new radio mechanic. The pieces align perfectly. At 23:47, Madrid acknowledges. Message received. Request confirmation of operator status. Harris reads the decoded response and smiles. They're curious, that's good. Curiosity means they're paying attention. He looks at Garbo. You should respond tomorrow. Confirm the mechanic is working out well. Keep it brief, don't over-explain. Garbo agrees. Tomorrow he'll send a short message confirming the operator is reliable, discreet and efficient. Nothing more. Let Berlin's imagination fill the gaps. Let them assume the details. That's how the best lies work. By saying just enough to trigger belief, then letting the audience complete the story themselves. Over the following weeks, a pattern establishes itself. Garbo's messages come through the radio mechanics transmissions. The fist remains consistent. Haynes's distinctive style, different from Garbo's earlier transmissions. Berlin accepts this. They file reports noting the network's improved communication efficiency. They increase their requests for intelligence, confident that Garbo's expanded technical capacity can handle higher volume. And the beautiful irony, the exquisite deception, is that Berlin is absolutely correct. The communication capacity has expanded. The technical efficiency has improved. But not because Garbo recruited a radio mechanic, because MI5 now controls the transmissions entirely, operating directly from headquarters, with no pretense of intermediary steps. Every message supposedly coming from Garbo's network in the field is actually composed in MI5 offices, encoded by MI5 cryptographers, and transmitted by MI5 radio operators. The entire network, all 27 sub-agents that will eventually exist, flows through this single point of control. And Berlin never suspects because the radio mechanic, the invisible functionary they barely think about, provides perfect cover for the centralized operation. In December 1942, 3 months after the radio mechanic's introduction, Harris reviews the operational logs. The network has transmitted 73 messages. Berlin has responded to 69. The acceptance rate is extraordinary. The Abwehr trusts Garbo completely, considers his network one of their most valuable intelligence assets in Britain, and they have no idea, no conception, that they're reading fiction crafted by their enemies, transmitted from the heart of British intelligence through a radio operator who doesn't exist. Harris writes in his operational diary, "The radio mechanic element is working beyond expectations. Berlin's acceptance is complete. We have achieved total narrative control." He doesn't mention the irony that achieving total narrative control required inventing a character whose entire purpose is to have no narrative. The radio mechanic has no story because he is the story, the invisible thread connecting fiction to reality, allowing 27 imaginary agents to communicate with genuine equipment, making the impossible appear routine. And it's that mundane impossibility that makes the whole operation succeed. The London Control Room, January 15th, 1943. MI5 headquarters, 2:30 a.m. 3 men occupy the basement radio room in the dead hours of London night. Haynes at the radio, fingers poised over the transmission key. Harris at the encoding table, cigarette smoke curling upward in the dim light. And Garbo, pacing again, always pacing, reviewing the message one final time before it travels across the channel. Tonight's transmission is different, not routine intelligence, not another cargo report or troop movement observation. Tonight, they're introducing Agent 7-4, a fictional Venezuelan living in South Wales, supposedly recruited by Agent 7, the original, now providing intelligence on military installations near Swansea. The complexity is expanding. It has to. A real intelligence network grows organically. Agents recruit sub-agents, sources lead to new sources, access expands through social networks. If Garbo's network remained static, Berlin would question its legitimacy. So MI5 is methodically expanding the fiction, adding characters, creating relationships, building a complete alternate reality where 27 spies operate across Britain, all reporting through one network controlled by a man who invented the entire thing while sitting in Lisbon. But expansion creates vulnerability. More characters mean more details to track, more relationships to maintain, more opportunities for contradiction. That's why the radio mechanic is crucial. He simplifies the communication structure. He eliminates timing problems. He provides a single point of control that makes managing 27 fictional agents practically possible. Haynes begins transmitting. The message goes out in segments. First the header, then the encoded intelligence, then the confirmation sequence. It takes 6 minutes, longer than usual. More information, more detail. Agent 7-4 is describing military installations with specific precision, barracks locations, troop numbers, equipment types. All of it real information, carefully selected by MI5 to be accurate but outdated, or accurate but operationally useless, or accurate but deliberately misleading about British intentions. The transmission ends. They wait for acknowledgement. "Think about what we're doing," Harris says quietly, stubbing out one cigarette and immediately lighting another. "We're sitting in London, in the headquarters of British counterintelligence, transmitting messages to German intelligence, pretending to be a British radio mechanic working for a Spanish double agent, pretending to run a network of 27 spies, none of whom exist." He exhales smoke. "Sometimes I wonder if we've all gone mad." Garbo stops pacing. "No, not mad. Practical. War is theatre. We perform better theatre than them." Haynes glances back from the radio. Madrid acknowledges. They're requesting follow-up on the Swansea installations, want more detail on defensive positions. Harris checks his notes. "We can provide that. There's an old survey from 41 that's been superseded. We'll send partial data from that. Make it look like 7-4 has limited access." This is how they work now, night after night. Messages arrive from Madrid, requests for specific intelligence, questions about previous reports, instructions for the network. Harris and his team analyze each request, determine what information to provide, craft responses that maintain the network's credibility while serving British interests. Then Haynes transmits it all, maintaining the fiction that he's a British radio mechanic hired by Garbo. The Germans have accepted this arrangement so completely that they sometimes send technical instructions directly, adjust frequency, change transmission schedule, modify encoding procedure. They're treating the radio mechanic as a legitimate operational asset, a functionary within Garbo's network. They've even assigned him a code designation within their internal files, Operator G1. Operator G1. A man who doesn't exist with an official German intelligence designation. The absurdity would be funny if the stakes weren't so high, because the fiction isn't just for entertainment. Every message transmitted through this basement room affects German strategic planning. When Garbo reports on convoy movements, German U-boats adjust positions. When he describes troop deployments, German intelligence briefs Hitler himself. The made-up observations of imaginary agents influence real-world decisions that affect the outcome of the war. And all of it flows through the invisible radio mechanic, the phantom operator, the functional fiction that makes 27 imaginary spies seem real. Harris reviews his operational timeline. They've been running the radio mechanic for 4 months now. In that time, the network has expanded from 7 agents to 12. Transmission frequency has doubled. The volume of intelligence has increased exponentially, and Berlin's trust has grown accordingly. They're preparing for something bigger. Harris won't say what. Operational security limits briefings even within MI5, but there are hints, references to a major operation in planning, discussions about large-scale deception, mentions of coordinating multiple double agents for a single strategic objective. Whatever it is, Garbo's network will be central, and that means the radio mechanic, the invisible functionary controlling all communications, will be crucial. Haynes completes the acknowledgement sequence, confirms Madrid received the message properly, then powers down the radio. 3:17 a.m. Another night's work complete. Another set of lies successfully delivered. Same time tomorrow? He asks. Harris nods. Tomorrow we introduce Agent 7, 5, another sub-agent recruited by 7, this one in Cardiff. More fiction, more characters, more complexity, but the radio mechanic makes it manageable. He's the infrastructure that supports the entire deception, the utility player who enables everyone else's performance. And Berlin keeps believing because the radio mechanic's existence makes everything else credible. Why would the British invent a radio operator? Why would that be part of the deception? It's too mundane, too practical, too boring to be fake. That's the genius of it. The radio mechanic is believable precisely because he's unremarkable. As Harris leaves the basement, heading home for a few hours of sleep before the next day's work begins, he thinks about the layers of deception they've constructed. They've created an agent who created agents who recruited sub-agents who report to a radio operator, and none of it is real except the radio operator's function, which is performed by the very people claiming to be his enemies. It's impossible, absurd, utterly mad, and it's working perfectly. First contact March 3, 1943, Madrid, Abwehr headquarters. Lieutenant Colonel Karl Erich Kuhlenthal sits in his office on the 3rd floor, reviewing the latest reports from Arabelle, the code name the Abwehr uses for Agent Garbo. Kuhlenthal is Garbo's primary handler, responsible for managing the network, requesting intelligence and evaluating its quality. He's a career intelligence officer, methodical and skeptical by training, suspicious of easy answers. He's also completely convinced that Arabelle is genuine. The file before him contains 2 months of transmissions, all coming through Arabelle's radio operator. The transmission quality is excellent. Clear signals, consistent timing, professional encoding. The intelligence is detailed, specific, corroborated by other sources. Reports on British convoy schedules match signals intelligence. Observations about troop movements align with aerial reconnaissance. The network is producing exactly what a legitimate spy network should produce. Reliable, timely, actionable intelligence. But there's something Kuhlenthal notices. A pattern. He leans back, lighting a cigarette, thinking through the operational structure. Arabelle commands a network of 12 agents now, spread across Britain, Glasgow, Liverpool, London, Swansea, Southampton. Each agent reports independently. Each has distinct access, different specialties, separate sources. Yet all their intelligence comes through a single transmission point, the radio operator in London. From an operational perspective, this is efficient. Centralizing communications simplifies logistics, improves security, ensures consistent quality. But it also creates a single point of failure. If British counterintelligence identifies the radio operator, they compromise the entire network. Kuhlenthal writes a memo to Berlin, marked Priority Assessment. He outlines his concern. He notes the network's dependence on one technical operator. He recommends diversifying communication channels, establishing backup transmission points, perhaps recruiting additional radio operators in other cities. The response comes back 3 days later. Berlin has considered his recommendation. They appreciate his vigilance, but they assess the current arrangement as acceptable risk. Arabelle's radio operator has proven reliable. His transmission security is excellent. The network's productivity justifies the centralized structure. Continue operations as planned. Kulenthal files the memo, satisfied. He's done his due diligence. If something goes wrong, he's documented his concerns. For now, he'll accept Berlin's assessment and continue managing the network. He doesn't know, could never know, that his concern about the single point of control is absolutely correct. But the danger is inverse to what he imagines. The radio operator isn't a vulnerability that might compromise the network. He is the compromise. He's the mechanism through which British intelligence controls every message, shapes every report, manipulates every piece of intelligence flowing from Britain to Germany. Kulenthal's professional suspicion identified the critical element, but he interpreted it as an operational weakness when it's actually an operational weapon. Weaving the Web, May 1943. London. The network has grown to 18 agents. Garbo's fictional creation has become MI5's most productive double-agent operation. The radio mechanic transmits nearly daily now, sending reports that mix truth and fiction so seamlessly that German intelligence cannot distinguish between them. Harris has refined the art of controlled deception. He provides real intelligence that's operationally useless, cargo that already shipped, troops that already moved, installations that already changed purpose. Mixed with this are completely fabricated reports that serve British strategic interests, phantom armies assembling in Scotland, fictional convoy routes through northern waters, imaginary aircraft production at facilities that don't exist, and all of it, every single message, comes through the radio mechanics transmissions. The Germans' trust is now so complete that they're using Garbo's intelligence to brief senior leadership. Ultra-intercepts reveal that reports from Arabelle's network are being included in briefings to Hitler himself. The fictional observations of imaginary agents are influencing German strategic planning at the highest level. But this creates new pressure. The more valuable Garbo's network becomes, the more careful MI5 must be. One mistake, one contradiction, one piece of intelligence that's too obviously false, and Berlin will begin investigating. They'll question sources. They'll verify reports. They'll start pulling the thread that unravels everything. The radio mechanic, the invisible operator, remains MI5's insurance policy. He's the narrative device that explains any technical inconsistency. If Madrid notices variation in transmission timing, it's because the radio mechanic adjusts his schedule. If encryption patterns change, it's because he's improving security procedures. If there's any technical anomaly, the radio mechanic provides plausible explanation. He's become more than a cover story. He's a universal justification for any operational detail that might otherwise raise suspicion. Section 8. The Greatest Lie, May 1944, London. Weeks before D-Day, everything has been building to this moment. Operation Fortitude, the massive deception operation designed to convince Germany that the D-Day invasion will hit Pas-de-Calais instead of Normandy. Every double agent in Britain is mobilized. Every fake report, every planted document, every false signal is coordinated toward a single objective: make Germany believe the Allies will attack where they won't. Garbo's network is central to this deception. His agents will provide the intelligence that confirms German suspicions. They'll report on troop movements, describe military preparations, observe naval concentrations, all suggesting an invasion force assembling for a crossing at the Strait of Dover. The radio mechanic transmits constantly, multiple messages daily. The volume is unprecedented, and it must be. A real spy network, detecting genuine invasion preparations, would flood their handlers with urgent reports. The transmission frequency sells the fiction. This isn't routine intelligence, this is crisis reporting from agents seeing history unfold. And it works. German intelligence accepts every report. They reinforce Pas-de-Calais. They position panzer divisions to defend against the real invasion. They maintain this deployment even after Allied forces land at Normandy, convinced that Normandy is a feint and the main assault is still coming at Calais. Thousands of lives are saved because German forces are positioned wrong. And they're positioned wrong because they believed the reports from Garbo's network, transmitted by a radio operator who never existed. Section 9, The Long Game, September 1944, London. Even after D-Day, the network continues. Garbo's agents keep reporting, the radio mechanic keeps transmitting. Because the deception doesn't end with invasion success. It extends into occupied Europe, misleading German intelligence about Allied intentions, capabilities, and strategies. The radio mechanic has been operating for nearly 2 years now. German intelligence has become so accustomed to his transmissions that they don't question the source. His infrastructure, background, assumed. That assumption is MI5's greatest achievement. They've normalized the impossible. They've made fiction routine. Section 10. The Truth Unveiled, May 1945, War's End. When Germany surrenders, MI5 faces a problem. What to do with Garbo? The network must appear compromised. Otherwise, German intelligence officers might realize the deception continues, might suspect everything was false. So Garbo dies. His network is captured. The radio mechanic disappears. But the truth remains classified. Kuhlenthal, Garbo's handler, never learns his best agent was fiction. He goes to his grave believing Arabelle was real, believing the network existed, believing the radio operator transmitted genuine intelligence from British agents. That belief, that persistent, absolute belief in something completely false, represents the ultimate success of Agent Garbo and his phantom radio mechanic. They created not just deception, but enduring conviction. They didn't just lie successfully. They made their lie become truth in the minds of their enemies. And that impossible achievement, a non-existent radio operator controlling a fictional network that influenced the outcome of World War II, stands as testimony to the power of carefully constructed fiction and the people who believe it.